Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. I got the one, the only, Michael, don't call him a 16-year-old girl, Higgins in the house. What's going on?
How are you, my brother? It's good to be here. It's good to see you also.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, we've been on Clubhouse. We've been DMing. So, guys, before we get started today, I want to thank my sponsor, Dream Chasers, Adam Carswell, for sponsoring the podcast. Thank you so much. So, Mike, what I like to do with my guests is kind of let them kind of tell their story where they want to start, and then we'll go from there, my brother.
Yeah, for sure. So it's I first of all, I appreciate being on here. I've been listening, and I just listened to a couple really crazy, awesome episodes in the last couple weeks here. They've been
there's no telling where those are. Yeah.
Dude, they're so good.
There's some stories in there. I'm just like, even me, I'm like, oh, how do I even respond to that?
Yeah, right. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, as I'm listening, I'm like, he's gonna ask me to start with a story, and I'm like, how am I gonna, like, what story am I gonna tell that's gonna top these stories or even be in the same ballpark? But I guess the only thing that we can do, right, is just share our experiences and share where we've been and hope that somebody out there connects with it. So I guess kind of where we're at today is I've been married for the last 9 years to my wife, and we have 4 incredible kids from 13 all the way down to 2. So I got 3 boys and a daughter, and we started originally in northern Wisconsin is where we lived. And we live in Wisconsin, just not quite as north as we used to. Grew up super blue collar, very blue collar, middle class. My dad's a construction worker, contractor. My mom worked in a bunch of different offices, from an eye care clinic to an oncology clinic. She was always an office manager, and knew that getting out of there was like number one. So nobody in my family had ever gone to college, let alone graduated from college. Actually, I take that back. My mom went for 1 year and then came back home. So that was where I decided I was going to go to college. And part of that was because of basketball. So basketball took me to college. I don't think it would have been a lot harder to get me to college if I wasn't playing ball. But that's what we did. And, I was on the 6-year plan because, if you do the math, my oldest is 13, I'm 33. So do the math in there and see where that came along. But ultimately led me to meet my wife and then get into this crazy career of real estate. And now it's been full-time real estate, and we're not looking back. So we super excited to see where this has taken us as far as just a career. Not only that, but just kind of the tool that it's become to start to make a lifestyle by choice, constructing our life, right? It's great. Mm-hmm. I mean, your podcast couldn't be more appropriately titled. Mm-hmm. And it's led to amazing relationships, like you and I being able to chat on a weekly basis, do some rooms on Clubhouse, and just grow our network. So super, that's like the very 30,000 foot view of where I come from, where we are today. So,
well, it's funny because there's something I like to study. I wouldn't say like I'm like studying, like I'm reading a book, but just studying in general with human contact. And I think there'll be a podcast in it like down the road, but it amazes me when you have the family dynamic of I'm a worker. This is what I do. My grandparents worked at DuPont, both of them for, 68 years. My great grandfather worked at Budweiser for 70, plus years, 60 plus years. And there is this mentality of investing or real estate investing, right? If you talk to even some of my coaching clients who are in the real estate space and their dad is like big time lawyers or something like that. And it's that weird thing over there that everybody does that we don't really know about, but we know we own a house and that's all we do. And so talk about how you found the aspects of getting outside of that, the way that your family had done it for so many generations. And did you get a little, were your parents kind of like, oh my, what are you doing out there?
Yeah, it's really crazy. This whole like personal growth journey, because that's where it all started, right? It all started with one book, actually my favorite book back there, and not my favorite book because it was it's had the best information.
Is that 80-20?
So now it's actually, that is 80-20 right there. But the one on top of that is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And why that's the most impactful book in my life, because it was the first book that I read probably since Dr. Seuss, right? Like after Green Eggs and Ham, I went this whole time of not reading any books, and then graduating from after I was actually in college. That's the first book that I ever read. And where I got it from is I actually joined a multi-level marketing company. And you can, whatever the stigma is around those companies, the one thing you can't take away from it is a bunch of passionate people who are focused on personal growth, and they're going to be better humans. So to me, that was one of the catalysts for, like 99% of the people who get in those companies, I never made any money. I bought all the products, right? But it was really a pinnacle, like it was a pivotal moment for, at the time, my girlfriend, now my wife, when we got into that company and actually had mentorship, who were in a place where we weren't. And we're like, whoa, like we can get there. Like maybe, and then ultimately, like that wasn't the vehicle, but that started the journey. And, it's been really cool. It's been an interesting dynamic because my parents have actually seen that shift in us, and there was no like, whoa, like slow down, pump the brakes. It was like, we were never taught this as kids. So we never taught Mike how to grow up with that. And now Mike's learning this stuff. Maybe Mike can teach us too, So it really created this interesting dynamic that then shifted into real estate. And it's the same principles, just a different vehicle, right?
100%. And it's funny that you bring, it's really funny that you bring up that book. We just started last week. We're writing a book where I'm releasing a book with a friend of mine. Probably 2 books this summer we're actually releasing. Thank God for the ghostwriter, my buddy who's written, because it ain't going to be me. I just talk to the Zoom and then transcribe it. And then he kind of makes it make sense. But we're basing the book kind of off the premise of that book. I mean, because we search high and low, we listen to podcasts and we read books, and I'm all about reading. I read probably, 3 books a week. But the genesis for anybody that's listening, like if you want the foundational work of like everything in your life, read Think and Grow Rich and How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Right.
Take those concepts, live by them week in, week out, and I promise you your life will be better.
Arguably every other personal growth book that was ever written are those concepts, right?
Exactly.
Like just with, and it's not that they're bad or that they copied something, because everybody interprets those. It's like the Bible, right? Everybody reads the Bible and they interpret it different. That's why there's 437 different translations of the Bible. I actually believe that everything in personal development was based off the Bible. 100%. If you listen to a lot of Jim Rohn stuff, I mean, anytime. So he was a huge impact. Like I remember getting a network marketing CD of Jim Rohn from one of my mentors at the time, and all of his personal growth philosophies are biblical principles. 100%. So, dude, I'm super excited for your books to come out, man. It's, I have to buy them in bulk. Everybody, like all my friends are putting books out right now. And I'm just, I have 20.
True story. I never, you're me. You've got books on books. We went golfing the other day. I'm just handing out books to people. I'm like, reading, Like, here's the scary thing. We're in the late summer, we're going to hit the road. We're going to be in like 1 month or at places, maybe South America. I got to stop buying books. I got to start putting it on Kindle. Right. Or so I got to teach myself. But
I bought my wife a Kindle for Christmas just for that exact reason. I was like, I got too many books upstairs bookshelf.
100%. And it's because something, we were talking about today with another guy who's big in the restaurant business is that the personal development framework can be like a water hose almost. And kind of the theme for today, because like I have like, 9 coaching calls, but like it seems like no matter where they are in the universe, everybody's in the same place. And one of the things that we've been talking about today is list of importance, right? And so like if you take the basic principles of the Bible, of how to win friends and influence with Think and Grow Rich, and let's say that you spend a week, right? I'm just trying to give somebody tactical, a week on integrating one of those things into your life instead of trying to take all 12 at the same time.
Right.
I think you're gonna get where you need to go. And Anthony Fasano, in my other podcast that we're releasing, says that he has 12 core values, and every month he tries to live in one of those values. And I thought that was a very interesting concept.
I love that a lot. And it's funny. It's weird how things like, I'm looking through notes right now because as we were like, my wife and I literally had this conversation yesterday just around habits and everything as well, because our habits are ultimately what create like how we show up, right? Like if we can nail our habits, and then then we have the like positive habits every single day, which then, all successful people have these positive habits that they do every single day. There's nothing sexy. There's nothing flashy. It's just the same thing, the same positive habit over and over and over again. And the theme is going to continue today. You talk about your importance list and everything like that. We were just talking about that in church yesterday, and it's something I like the idea though of kind of chunking it down. We were trying to figure out, how do we take all these different things that we want to figure out, like these habits we want our kids to instill, habits that we need to figure out, like, and you really just need to chunk it down and focus on one. And once you master that, then you stack. Then it's habit stacking at that point, exactly. Right? No, I love, this is awesome. I love this topic a ton.
Well, here, I'll just use me as an example. There's the podcast, there's the coaching, there's the three companies that I'm involved in. There's the books, there's the other podcast that I'm on. And so if you look at it as a whole, while I'm walking this morning, right, my YouTube guy,
not to mention you're working out twice a day, right? Like,
and I'm trying to be a boyfriend, so if you look at all those things on a whole, right, my YouTube guy had some family stuff. He's like, I can't help you anymore. And so like in my first initial feeling was, oh God, like how I need to do that. And then I thought to myself, like, I wrote down a list and I said, what's the most important things, right? It's the podcast, because I have to serve my people and I have to serve my coaching clients. And then after that is my business where I make money, like my other businesses.
How do you,
in essence, right? The YouTube is important, but that doesn't mean I can't get to it in 2 months. And so what are the actual things that I can control?
That's, and I flipped this script to you for a minute, because it brings up, when you're talking about that, it brings up this sense of kind of FOMO, right? This fear of missing out, because we have all of these things. So like somebody looks at your snapshot of all these different things you have going on. They're like, holy crap. I think
and to me, I feel still like I'm not doing anything. Right.
Like I got to do all these things. So how do you, from a tactical standpoint, how do you compartmentalize that? Like, what tools do you use to make sure that they know, like coaching clients, podcasts, like boom, 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 this is it. And then mentally letting go of the 47 other things that are on that list, because there's the 3 that are most important. How do you,
because, and I'm not saying I'm always amazing at it, but the way I thought about it this morning was as simple as this: the people that are paying me to be in their life, to hold them accountable and make them better, they deserve my most attention. Because they're trusting me because of 2 things. One, I care like a lot, like when you're in there. Second thing is, selfishly, if I'm just being honest, my reputation are those humans walking around on this planet.
Right.
And if I don't do my job, my reputation as a coach doesn't exist. Well, how do I serve those people? How do I get more clients from my podcast, from my content? So in my opinion, these 2 aspects are what matters the most. Now, here's the kicker. I have an amazing right-hand man assistant who handles the scheduling of the podcast. So once I record it, it goes in the thing. The second thing is I've learned to partner up, like perfect example, our new company in the construction space, which we've got a lot to talk about. that we're gonna
Are we gonna start talking about real estate sometime?
No, in a minute. We're gonna rock your world with some construction stuff. But I thought to myself, like, why? I was talking about somebody. It was why can I go in and feel so confident about what I'm doing here, right? Well, there's a bunch of different reasons why. One, lost a bunch of money back here, scaled a business that didn't work. The confidence is better, my mindset's better. But more importantly, I'm doing business with people that I trust and know that the aspects of building, scaling, the construction side of it, I don't care. I don't want to know. True story. I'm on a Zoom call with my buddy who's teaching how to repurpose the content and everything. And he gets down to the schedule part, like how you schedule the content, how you schedule everybody, the video editor. And I literally go, I'm good. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, I'm good. This is going to be a useless conversation.
Right.
Because my assistant could join. I said, next time when he's here, then you can have the conversation. He goes, wow, that took a lot. And I was like, it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not my thing.
It reminds me a lot of, like, I just read 2 times in a row, probably a month ago, the Benjamin Hardy's book that he did with Dan Sullivan, Who Not How. Mm-hmm. And you've essentially, the whole concept of the book is not figuring out how are we going to get this done? Who can I put in place that will be able to get this done for me that can also do it way better than me? So you've created a team of who's in your life who are going out. You have your video editor and different things like that.
Well, in a concept, because we were talking behind the scenes in the clubhouse talk, and I'll ask you kind of your thoughts on this. When I started going down, this was 2 years ago, when I started going down the multifamily space, I was in the Zoom calls every week. I was like, cap number, ROI, IRR. I'm like going, and like this went on for like 6 months. And I literally looked at myself in the mirror and I go, this is stupid. Like, not only do I not care, I just don't want to do this. I hate spreadsheets. So I thought to myself, I know the best multifamily operators in the country. Why would I spend the next 5 years trying to be great at this when I don't want to do it? Why wouldn't I just partner with them? And then I had the epiphany when I was on vacation. And I said, the true goal in real estate, right, is not to bet on the horse. It's to bet on the jockey. Not to bet on the asset, but to bet on the operator.
Right.
And that's when I just said, okay, I can give up control.
Yep. 100%. I 100%. That's the other thing that Ben Hardy talks about too, is to have the self-awareness to realize that you don't need to, there's certain things in your life that you need to stop trying to figure out and know every aspect of it, because it's taking the energy, for your case, it's taking the energy away from your clients. It's taking the energy away from your podcast and building your brand and everything that's like those 1, 2, 3, you trying to figure out cap rates, IRR, market conditions, where's the next spot, like that just doesn't serve you at your highest level. And there's somebody else out there that can just do that honestly, that can do it way better than you can. And you know what I mean?
But more importantly, like, know enough to be dangerous.
Right.
Like just like you probably do.
Exactly.
But doesn't mean you have to go down the full on rabbit hole. Right. Yeah.
100%.
Because ultimately, and so, we'll switch, we'll get on the real estate for a little bit. Was there a book, or was there a time, like, how did you like approach it? Right. What were you doing at the time?
Yes. So how I stumbled into real estate is, so I actually had a full-time job with a major chocolate company, and we had just bought our first house, and I actually became friends with my realtor, and my realtor said, hey, and then again, rewind. My dad's a contractor to this day. My first job of 12 years old was picking shingles up off the ground as he was re-roofing houses, and I was picking them up and throwing them into the dumpster. Right. So I've always been around houses. Like I could build a house from the ground up if I had to, because I have the skills that my dad taught me. So I have to give him a lot of credit to that. But the one, and then also the credit that I have to give him is he showed me what I never wanted to do in my life, was get on a roof and roof houses and right. I just realized that. And I was like, man, it's good to have these skills, but just like you need to have enough to be dangerous, but I don't need to be putting on a roof, because I'll tell you what, like when you're talking July 7th and you're on a roof that's black, that's hot, and it's the worst time of your life. Like it's literally, it's awful. But so I knew enough. And my mom was always, she's always redecorating the house, and every 2 weeks you come home and the couch is in a different spot and there's different things on the walls and all this. And I just grew up with that. So naturally I'm like, I'm never going to be a contractor ever. Like, this is just the worst thing in the world, because the way that I thought was that if you were a contractor, that means you had to do the work. So we ended up buying our first house and we kind of like accidentally flipped it. We were in there for probably a month and a half. I totally demolished the kitchen. My wife was doing dishes in the bathroom. And it was testing on our marriage, if I'm being completely honest as well. But so I built all new cabinets from the ground up. Between YouTube and a skill saw, I had a lot of, in my past life with my dad, I had enough to be dangerous. And I did a really good job, and we ended up making a profit on that property. And then in that time, I actually got my real estate license. My realtor was like, hey, you need to think about getting your license. So I got my license in 2015. I had a full-time job in that first year. I ended up selling 31 houses, and I exceeded my W-2 income. And it was really cool because I was an outside sales job. And I don't recommend this to anybody. Like, it's super difficult to get your real estate license and be successful with a second job. People think they want to do it part-time. It's just not possible. It's literally 2 full-time jobs. So, I had the blessing to be in an outside sales role where I never went to an office. I had a company car. I could be on the phone, texting, emailing all day. As long as I was getting my work done, nobody bothered me. It was great. Second year, sold 44 homes. Also had the full-time job for part of that year, ended up leaving and going full-time in real estate. And then that year, towards the end of that year, I ended up flipping my first house with a partner. And then it was off to the races. It was all this side focused on investing. That is where I was like, whoa, screw the 6%, the 3% commission. Like, you can buy these houses and flip them and make way more money, plus still get your commission when you list it yourself. Mm-hmm. And then last year, during the pandemic, I had all this conversation, talk of, I got into real estate to invest in houses. I got into real estate to, become a landlord and to just create this lifestyle. And I never focused on that. So last year during the pandemic, we're home and I'm like, hey, I'm shifting my business model mentally to go all in on investments, and then retail will just be a second thought. So that's kind of the long-winded version of how it all started.
I want to sit there for a minute, because a lot of my clients are real estate agents and a lot of my friends are agents. There's a lot of things in there, but the number one thing first question I want to ask you is, why do you think, me and my girlfriend cannot understand this, why do you think more real estate agents aren't investors?
Dude.
I mean, I can't wrap my head.
All I can say is, dude, like, because I don't get it. And it's really a mind shift. And I think, unfortunately, what happens in real estate is people get into the real estate world as an agent, and agents are great, right? They have a bad rap, and there are a couple bad agents, right? But there's a couple bad podcast hosts too, and you're not one of them, right? Like, everybody, there's a couple bad apples in every bunch, and it just kind of ruins it for the agent world. Why people get into real estate: one is there's a low barrier to entry, right? It's not very hard to get your license. And two, they have a dream. Like, they're dreaming of being their own boss and having their own schedule. And you get into real estate, and one of two things really happen the way I see it. Number one is you just burn out, you don't close any houses, and you end up out of the industry. It just doesn't work out for you. That's for a lot of people. Number two, you become super successful, and then you've just created you've bought yourself a job. You work more as a realtor than you did as whatever you were in your corporate world. You make a lot more money, but you're working a lot more also. Mm-hmm. And they don't realize that there's this other side. Like, realtors all day will invest or will represent guys like you and me as investors and say, hey, I got this great property. Hey, check out this deal. This has got this cap rate, this return of investment, like boom, boom, boom. And they can't make the mind shift to be like, whoa, I saw that first. If I just took some of this income that I made all this money as a realtor and shifted that into this house, instead of making a 3% commission, I could make a $30,000 profit. Like, Dude, to answer your question, I just don't know. I think realtors need to be more educated, because for me, having a family, a great example of what maybe this will like click for somebody, right? I just bought a house. I was telling you about our biggest flip that we're going to do in our area. And the profit that we're potentially going to make on this is going to be somewhere in the 75 to 100K range. And I don't say that to like brag. I just say that this should trip your trigger here for a minute. 3%. I just did the math the other day. At an average of 3% that gets paid on both sides. And I know you have realtors listening to this, so it'll make sense to them. If you reverse that to how many millions in real estate I have to sell, it's between 4.5 and 5 million in real estate that I have to sell at our price point, which for me at this price point means I have to sell north of 22 houses to make the same amount of money as I would flipping this one house. Now, mind you, like, it's a big risk, right? I think risk is relative also, but I have 4 kids. I have a wife. They're number one in my world without a doubt. So if I can take one flip property and make the same amount of money as I would be selling 22 houses, almost 23 houses doing the math.
Yeah.
Why, like, wouldn't you want to buy that time back? I just don't get it.
We just hooked into one. It's probably my first flip in about a year and a half, and with 9 lots attached to it. So 9 new builds. And the profit on the flip is in the 70 to 110 range. Right. And I just thought to myself, like, I made like 2 phone calls. I was like, hey, can you represent me? Do you have the guys that can do this? Yes. Okay, let's go. Like, but it doesn't hurt that I used to work in hard money, but like, it's like boom, boom, right? Okay. So now I'm going to play the other side of the coin. This is where it gets scary. And I would imagine it took many a nights. You also have the other side of the coin is you have a steady reputation and a referral source, and you're making good money as an agent. Not doing that or not having that as your focus, I'm sure, is a big mind shift as well from the head of the household to many different things, right? There's a risk factor that maybe is not as great per se,
right,
on the thing. So talk about the process of being okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a really good point you bring up. It's a similar concept of when you get into being an agent, you have the security of your full-time job as well, right? The way that I look at it and process it, and it's neither right nor wrong, just the way that I process it, is that when I show up every day to prospect to my network, to take guys out to coffee, go golfing, whatever it is, none of the deals that I sell on a retail base, none of it's actually guaranteed. It's all dependent on my work that I do to network with people, right? It's all dependent on if my network knows what I'm doing. So I looked at these 2 things and I said, okay, I'm not guaranteed any, like, I don't have a W-2 as an agent. I do have a reputation, which you spoke of. So I don't have a W-2 as an agent, nothing guaranteed over here, but my ceiling just felt way higher, if that makes sense, like, to invest. So my mind shift was, if I'm going to try to focus my amount of time where I can put in an hour, let's in dollars, right? If as an agent, I'm going to put in $1 and get 3 back, but as an investor, I'm going to put in $1 and get 7 back. Like, where's my path of least resistance? So I looked at that and I was like, okay, well, there's going to be a lull in the beginning during your shift period. You're going to have 90 to 120 days or more, it depends, of shifting that focus and re-educating your network as to what you're doing. But at the end of the day, a year from now, if neither one is guaranteed, I'm going to go where the highest return on my time is. And for me, it made sense and showed up in the real estate investing. So that's kind of how I process that.
I'm going to go about 9 layers deep here because something just hit me. The reason that people, because you said something in there that stuck with me, you re-educate yourself and re-educate the people. The reason that people don't make that shift for 2 reasons. One, they're in their comfort zone. The second reason is they're scared to remove the identity of an agent. Right. The identity factor that's huge.
Everybody puts their face on their business card. Like, you know what I mean? That's a great insight for sure.
Yeah. It's the truth, man. And understand that you as a person are choosing to show up, right? Look, you don't know much about the recovery space, but the reason that people don't stop drinking and the reason people don't stop doing drugs has nothing to do with drinking and doing drugs. It's because their identity of being a user is all they know. And removing that from their life scares the fucking shit out of them.
Mm.
That's the scary thing that nobody talks about. Because if they don't have that, then what are they, Mike?
Right.
If you're not an agent and you have to be an investor and it takes you 6 months and you don't get a deal, then what are you? Instead of finding the identity of who you are inside your soul and your core values and removing your attachment for your job and somebody that, you know, and I think why I want to piggyback on this conversation is I think one of the reasons that you shifted into the investor role focus is because something we talk about all the time, which is lifestyle investing.
Yeah.
Like, because what I found with agents, right, is the number one thing they can't combat against is their time is being bombarded at all times because their time is not their time.
Right.
And so by you doing that one flip, by you switching to it, well, I don't feel like looking for a deal this week. I want to hang out with my family. Like, you've gained back to all your time. And I'm sure that was a big reason why that was the switch too.
Yeah. And I talk about this, like we talk about it in this conversation here, like, oh, we have all the answers. It makes sense. Don't get me, like, it's not easy. Like, there's always that pull, and it's not often like I have a ton of times where I feel like, what do I do at this time? I don't sit well in silence. You were just telling me about your schedule today. You know, it's like, sometimes if I don't feel like I'm going, I feel like a failure. And that shows up for me in my identity in whatever it is that I'm doing. But you're absolutely right. Like, the name of the game is cash flow and lifestyle at the end of the day, right? Like, cash coming in and that success in that world, you know, your lifestyle can look like whatever you want it to. And it was like buying leads from Zillow and like realtor.com and going on this, you know, happy hour with, you know, you had to be in all the places and you were always away, and that's just the whole world. And finally, when you get to a point where your phone's ringing and it says Zillow lead on it, you're like, I just don't want to answer that call because I don't want to go show that house. And like, it just got to be a lot, and it's got to be burnout, you know. In there too, I was running one of the biggest teams in our county here for a year and a half as well. And just, your time isn't your time 100%. And finally, you know, after that, you're like, I just want my time back. And this is the best route to get there, in my opinion. You know, it's the whole concept of lifestyle investing. It can be through real estate, through businesses, a combination of both. I think both of those worlds will be in there at some capacity if somebody's interested in that, going down that road, you know?
Well, I think what's interesting about people is nobody understands they don't understand that what they seek, meaning like the life that they truly seek, is probably about $3,500 away per month.
Right.
You know, but we've created this mind gap where we need 20K a month and like all this stuff. And like, you really don't. And you can live a great life. And so the question is, if you did one flip and you made 40K, like, I mean, in essence, you probably live for like 6 months. And so like, but where that pushes up against is how we feel about ourselves. Like,
well, it also, because we're comparing against other people as well, right? So it's like, oh, Austin did XYZ. Now I need to be able to get there and do XYZ as well. Like, we fall into that trap as well.
Well, we were doing a podcast the other day, and he said something to me that stuck with me, and I can't shake it from my head. He's like, if you couldn't go to the gym for 3 days, like, who would you be as a person? And I was like, he's like, I'm not discounting. He's like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that like the positive effects from going to the gym is better than 90% of the stuff you can do. But I'm curious how many humans tie their identity to going to the gym, doing the Instagram post. Like,
right.
Like, are you really going to the gym for you? Or are you really taking that time for you? And I think this is in a looking mirror. inspection that everybody needs to understand. Like, what parts of your life are you doing that are for somebody else or doesn't serve you? And it's like, Matty A always talks about like dirty yeses. Like, how many dirty yeses are on your schedule? And that's always the one that like gets me like, and you start looking through it and you're like,
Yeah.
Because that's where I live, because I want to help so much. But then I also like my schedule just gets, and then I'm like frustrated because I'm so busy.
Right. It never comes from a negative place. It typically always is coming from a place of like genuinely wanting to help. And, like you said, but then all of a sudden it piles up and you're like, oh, where's my Austin time here? Like,
yeah, for sure. And then moreover, like turning it off. But something I want to talk about, because I'm very, I love this group, and I don't know too much about it, but I've seen a lot about front row dads there. Kind of talk about what they do if nobody's heard of them, kind of what their mission is. Yeah,
man. So it's really like kind of the tagline is being a family man with a business and not a businessman with a family. And I know you've had Justin Donald on here, and you kind of run in the same circles of a lot of guys that are in that group. But it's been, John Vroman, who started the group 5-6 years ago, didn't kind of these conversations. He didn't start the group because he is like the best dad in the world. And he'll tell you that. He started this group because he needed to surround himself and figure out how to be better. Because he was, speaking on stages, traveling all over the country, and never home for his family. And so it's, I've been in the group for now about 2 years, and I can really say like it's my brotherhood. It is the group of guys that show up for me, and it's really shifted my mindset to just live with that as the focus of, the whole lifestyle investing. You just had Justin on the podcast not too long ago that you aired, and thinking through the lens of, a lot of times we go to work and we give our best to our work, and then our family gets our leftovers, right? And just really flipping the script on that. I'm a big fan of flipping the script. That's been my whole phrase now for probably the past 6 months on everything, on health, on healthcare, on wealth, on family, anything that we're fed from mainstream. I'm going to tell you to flip the script on that, and we should probably go in the other direction. So yeah, Front Row Dads has been a really pivotal point, or a pivotal group in my life to really help with that mind shift and just be centered with high performing guys, but their North Star is family first. And that just means a lot to me. So, it's interesting. There's no need to broadcast it, but long story short, there's somebody that I very, very, very much respect, like big titan in the business, kind of somebody I trust as I. And I had somebody coming up on the podcast that I didn't know was kind of a shyster, bigger name. I just canceled it today. And he's like, holy crap, Austin. Like you don't care about ratings. Like you just canned him. And I was like, yep. And it was big. This is probably the biggest name I ever got. And I didn't know about these things that he was doing. And I just canned it. And I say that story not to make myself look good. I say this to say this. The one thing I learned from GoBundance is I don't care if you're making $1 million a day and you're 150 pounds overweight and you're a shitty father. I don't give a shit. I will not listen to any of your business advice. I am looking for men in my life that stand up and are kings in all the pillars of their life. As a father, health, spiritually, relationship, love, business. I need the whole package. I need a whole life millionaire. I'm not looking for just a millionaire. Right. Yeah. Matty A, the rich life, right? Like, and it's, I think another key point in those pillars is guys that really realize, and gals, that really realize they've never arrived and they never will arrive. It's a continual journey, right? Like there's always another level to break through. And, I think about, one of the guys that I was talking to in the group, big, huge name, wrote a massive book. And it was funny because you're in a sense, like first thing I ever talked to him on a Zoom call was talking about like how I was a little bit awestruck, and then I realized, hey, you suck at being a dad too, and we're on the same playing field, right? Like,
Yeah.
So it's really cool, and I agree with you 100%, because in that moment that you canceled that podcast, there's like this alignment probably with you that felt like, oh, there's a small piece of you that was like, oh, that stinks. Like I do like the ratings and this, that, but there's a much bigger, the other 99% of you that just aligned. And there was probably like this sense of, yeah, like this is right. All is good with the world, you know?
Yeah. And he said something very simple. He said, thank you for taking a stand. And in my opinion, I'm not taking a stand. I'm just not going to be a part of it.
Right.
And so the question that I want to leave everybody with is, what are you letting slide by your standards? I think personal standards are the true superpower to everything in your life. Like, how are you working out? How are you, how do you make the people next to you, like your friends, do you hold them to a standard, or do you let them get away with, those things they shouldn't be saying? Like, it's just, I refuse to be around negativity. I can't do it.
I'm looking for I think it was a bigger podcast episode with Ed Milet. And Ed Milet's huge in talking about you don't get your goals, you get your standards or something. I think episode 433. Mm-hmm. And he went on this monologue about you get your standards. And man, I just agree with you 100%. That's all I wanted to say, was just that I'd listened to Ed Milet talk about his standards. And
yeah, he slayed that interview. Yeah, he I just listened to his book this morning, actually, finally, Max Out. But, I love his concept about temperature in the room. Like,
right.
That's I love that theory. Like, your temperature is going to regulate with who you're with. And I think it's the same thing. Are you surrounding yourself by people that are, whole life millionaires, doing the positive things, not claiming to be perfect, but always looking to create another stone to turn over? So if people want to find out more about you and what you're going on, how would they do that?
Yeah, man. By the time this is out, my website and personal brand website will be out, meetmikehiggins.com, and then that'll have, all the good places. I've been spending a lot of time on Clubhouse, some with you, and Instagram right now. It's a really good place to be. So at Mike Higgins on everything, but that website will be the place to find it.
All right. Guys, if you like this episode, make sure you send it out to your friends, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.